forgotten. They left him under a tree, not because they were cruel people, but because they believed, with every fiber of their tradition, that a child who could not walk was a child the gods had already decided to take back. So they left him, and they waited for him to disappear. He did not disappear. What he did instead, no one in that village was prepared for. Not the elders, not the healers, not even his own mother, the woman who had placed him there weeping and walked away. Stay with me, because what this boy became will break something open inside you. His name was Kofi, Kofi Mensa, born in a small village called Nkinkim, a Twi word meaning adaptable, a word woven into the Adinkra tradition of the Akan people of Ghana. The irony of that name would take 20 years to reveal itself fully. Kofi came into the world in the dry season, when the red dust of the savannah hung in the air like something breathing. His mother, Abina, labored through the night with the help of the village women. By morning, they had a boy. Strong lungs, clear eyes, a face that the elder midwife said looked like it belonged to someone who had been here before. But something was different. His legs. They lay at angles that legs should not lie at. The midwife examined him in the gray pre-dawn light, her face still, professional, revealing nothing. But when she placed him back in Abina's arms and turned away, Abina saw it. The midwife did not look back. That was the first sign. By the time the sun had fully risen over Nkinkim, the village already knew, and the village, a community of 400 souls that had survived drought, colonial disruption, and a generation of its young people leaving for Accra. The village began, quietly and with great sadness, to make up its mind. A child who could not walk was a child marked by something unseen. A child marked by something unseen was a burden the village could not afford to carry. Kofi was 6 days old when they told Abina what she had to do. Abina was 23 years old. Her husband, Kwame, had gone to Kumasi for work, as many men from Nkinkim went, and had not returned. Whether he was dead or simply gone was a question Abina had stopped asking, because neither answer gave her anything to use. She had come back to her mother's village with nothing but the child growing inside her and the particular dignity of a woman who has decided that whatever comes next, she will face it standing. The elder who came to speak with her was not unkind. He was a man who had led the village for 30 years, who had seen drought and disease and the deaths of children he had known since birth. He spoke to her gently. He explained what the tradition said. He explained what the signs meant. He explained that the child's condition was not a punishment for anything she had done, but a message from the ancestors that this soul was not ready to stay. He told her that if she kept the child, she would be fighting against something the universe had already decided. And in Nkinkim, a village where the universe's decisions were not things you argued with, this was a powerful statement. Abina listened. She nodded. She thanked the elder, and she placed Kofi beneath the great neem tree at the edge of the village, the tree that had always been the boundary between the village and the world the village did not control. Then she walked back to her mother's house, and she sat down, and she did not move for 3 days. But on the third night, something happened. She heard a sound from the direction of the neem tree. Not a cry, not the sound of a dying child. Laughing. She could not explain it. No one could. The village had heard it too. Several of the women who lived nearest to the tree had heard it and gone to their doors and stood there in the dark, listening with expressions they could not name. A 6-day-old child, alone under a tree, laughing. Abina was at that tree in her bare feet before she understood she had stood up. She found Kofi exactly where she had left him, on the cloth she had laid for him, his legs at their wrong angles, his hands waving at the darkness above him. His face was not the face of a child in distress. It was the face of someone who had just heard a very good story. She picked him up. She carried him home. She did not put him under the tree again, and the village watched and waited for the punishment that this defiance would bring. It did not come.
What came instead was something no one had anticipated. Every day was worse than it looked. Abina raised Kofi alone, in a village that had decided, quietly, carefully, without malice, to treat him as though he were already somewhere else. The other children were not cruel to him directly, they simply did not see him. He was there, and yet he was invisible in the way that things the community has decided not to look at become invisible. He could not walk. He moved through the compound on his hands, dragging his legs behind him, with a determination that the adults found uncomfortable to watch, and so they found reasons not to watch. He went to school because Abina made him go. She carried him every morning, a woman who worked in the fields from sunup to past sundown, carrying a child of 5, then 6, then 7, to a school that had not been designed for a child who could not use his legs. The teacher was a kind man, but he was also a practical man with 40 students and a single room and no training for what Kofi required. He let Kofi sit in the back. In the back is where Kofi listened. And listening, it turned out, was something Kofi did better than almost anyone the village had ever produced. But no one knew that yet, because no one was paying attention to the boy in the back.
The year Kofi turned 9, 2 things happened that changed everything. The first was the drought. It had been coming for a season. The elders had read it in the dry air, in the behavior of the birds, in the way the soil was cracking earlier than it should. But knowing it was coming and surviving it were 2 different things. By the middle of the dry season, the village's water source, a shallow well that had been reliable for 3 generations, was producing half of what it had produced the year before. The village called a meeting. The men proposed solutions, going further for water, rationing, appealing to the district government for assistance. The proposals were practical and insufficient. The elder who had told Abina to place Kofi under the neem tree sat at the center of the meeting, and his face, for the first time that Abina could remember, showed something like uncertainty. Kofi was at the back of the meeting. He was always at the back of things. But this time, from the back, he raised his hand. No one saw it at first. He raised it again. His teacher, the practical man who had let him sit in the back, was the one who noticed. He nodded toward Kofi. The elder looked up. The room fell quiet in the particular way rooms fall quiet when something unexpected is about to happen. "There is another water source," Kofi said. His voice was steady. It was the voice of a 9-year-old boy, but it carried the specific quality of someone who has spent years listening and has calculated carefully before deciding to speak. The elder stared at him. "How do you know this?" he said. And Kofi, the boy who was not supposed to be there, who had been placed under the neem tree to disappear, who had been sitting in the back of every room for 9 years, began to explain. He had been reading every book the teacher had, every pamphlet from the district agricultural office that had ever come through Ankinkim. He had read about the geology of their specific region. He had drawn maps, small, careful maps on the backs of whatever paper he could find. And he had identified from the geological pattern of the land around the village the location where a deeper aquifer was almost certainly accessible. The room was silent. Then someone laughed. Not everyone, but enough. "A crippled child," one man said, not cruelly, but with the genuine bewilderment of someone confronting something that does not fit their categories, "is going to show us where to find water?" And then, here is where the story takes a turn that no one in Ankinkim was ready for. The elder held up his hand. The room went quiet again. And the elder, the man who had told Abina to leave her son under the neem tree, looked at Kofi for a long moment. "Show me the map," he said. But that was only the beginning, because even if the map was right, and 3 of the village's most experienced farmers were not at all sure that it was, there was a second problem. Someone had to walk to the location Kofi had identified. Someone had to assess it. Someone had to do it without the time or resources to be wrong. And in the middle of all of this, in the middle of the drought, in the middle of the village's skepticism, in the middle of Abina's fierce and quiet hope, the second thing happened. Kofi's legs, which had never supported any weight in 9 years of life, began to cause him a new kind of pain. Not the ordinary pain of legs that do not work properly. A different pain, a growing pain, something changing.
His mother noticed first, the way he winced in the early mornings, the way he was quieter than usual, even for him. She took him to the village healer. The healer examined him. Then she did something that the village healer had not done in all the years Abina had been watching her practice. She stopped. She examined him again. She looked at Abina. "Take this child to the hospital in Kumasi, now, before this gets worse. What is happening in his legs is not a curse. It never was. It is a medical condition, and there may be something that can be done." Abina had no money for Kumasi. She had no way to get there. She had a drought, a skeptical village, and a 9-year-old son who had just told the elders where to find water. What happened next? No one in Nkinkim was ready. Not one person.
The elder came to Abina's door the following morning. He came alone. No entourage, no ceremony. Just the old man, the most powerful voice in the village, standing at a woman's door at dawn with something in his expression that she had never seen there before. He had been up all night. He had been up all night because he had taken Kofi's maps, the small, careful drawings on the backs of old paper, and he had walked, alone, by moonlight, to the location the boy had identified. He had found exactly what Kofi said he would find. The signs were all there. The specific vegetation pattern, the change in the soil, the slight depression in the land that a geologist's textbook, a textbook that a 9-year-old boy in the back of a classroom had read and understood, would have recognized immediately. The elder stood at Abina's door, and he said something that cost him something. "I was wrong," he said, "about your son, about what he was, about what he meant." Abina did not cry. She was not a woman who cried in front of people, but she held on to the doorframe for a moment in a way that told the elder everything she was not going to say. "The village will find the money for Kumasi," the elder said, "and the village will dig where your son showed us." It was not a small thing he was doing. In Nkinkim, an elder reversing a decision was not something that happened quietly. It happened in front of everyone. It required the elder to stand before the community and say, "I told you one thing. The thing I told you was not the truth. Here is the truth." He did this. The Sunday after his moonlit walk to Kofi's identified location, before the community gathered for their usual weekly meeting, the elder stood up and told the village what Kofi had done, what the map showed, what he had found in the dark. And then he said something that no one expected. "We nearly let this child die," he said. "We nearly let this child die because we could not see past what his body could not do. We forgot to look at what his mind was doing." A woman at the back of the gathering began to cry. She was not the only one. A collection was taken up. Not enough for Kumasi alone, but a teacher from the district school who had heard about Kofi through a colleague made a call. That call reached an NGO operating in the Ashanti region, and that NGO, 3 weeks later, sent a vehicle to Nkinkim. The doctor who came was a young Ghanaian woman who had trained in Accra and done her residency in London. She examined Kofi with the kind of thoroughness that told both him and his mother that she was not going to give them a comfortable lie. When she finished, she sat across from Abina. "His condition is called bilateral congenital hip dysplasia, complicated by muscle contracture," she said. "It was never a spiritual condition. It was never a message from the ancestors. It was a medical condition, and it was treatable. It should have been treated when he was an infant. It is still partially treatable now." Abina asked what that meant. The doctor said, "It means he will not run. It is too late for that. But with surgery and physiotherapy, he may walk, with assistance, with time." Abina asked what that meant. The doctor said, "It means he will lose the use of what mobility he has within a few years." Abina nodded. She looked at her son. Kofi was looking at the doctor's medical bag, at the instruments inside it, at the expression he always had when he encountered something he did not yet understand and intended to. "Will there be things to read?" asked the doctor. "At the hospital, will there be books?" The doctor looked at him. Then she looked at Abina. Then she did something completely unprofessional.
She laughed, not in mockery, but in the specific delight of encountering something that surprises you completely. "Yes," she said, "there will be books."
The surgery happened 6 weeks later at the Komfo Anoki Teaching Hospital in Kumasi. It took 4 hours. Abina sat in the waiting area for all 4 hours without moving, without eating, speaking to no one. The women from Nkinkim who had come with her, 3 of them, including the healer who had sent them there, sat beside her. When the surgeon came out, his expression was careful. "The surgery went well," he said, "but the recovery will be long, and the physiotherapy will be painful, and the outcome," he paused, measuring his words, "the outcome is not certain." Abina said, "He will do it." The surgeon looked at her. "He will do it," she said again. "You don't know him." The surgeon would say years later in an interview for a Ghanaian medical journal that he had performed hundreds of surgeries. He had seen patients give up and patients push through. He had thought generally that he could tell the difference before treatment began. He had been wrong about Kofi. Not because Kofi was superhuman, but because Kofi had spent 9 years doing something the village had never credited him for. He had been preparing. Not consciously, not with a plan, but the boy who was invisible, who sat in the back of every room, who listened to everything, who read every piece of paper that came within his reach, had built inside himself a kind of interior infrastructure that most people never build. A tolerance for discomfort, a familiarity with patience, a certainty forged in 9 years of being overlooked that the thing you are working toward does not care how long it takes. The physiotherapy was exactly as painful as the surgeon had promised. Kofi did not complain. This was not bravery in the dramatic sense. It was something quieter. He simply had a longer view of pain than most 9-year-olds. Pain, in his experience, was not a signal to stop. It was information. He filed it. He continued. The physiotherapist, a serious young man named Emmanuel, told the other staff in the ward after the 3rd week that Kofi was the most focused patient he had treated in 4 years of practice. He asked questions about everything, Emmanuel said. He wants to know what each exercise is doing to which muscle. He wants to understand the mechanism. He is not trying to get better by hoping. He is trying to get better by understanding. 12 weeks after the surgery, 12 weeks of hospital work, of daily physiotherapy, of Abina sleeping on a mat in the corridor because she could not afford the family accommodation, Kofi stood up. Not easily, with Emmanuel on one side and a metal frame on the other, but he stood. And then he took a step, and then another. Abina made no sound. She simply put her hands over her mouth and held them there. The physiotherapy ward had seen many recovery moments. They were a professional team. They were accustomed to progress. But something about this particular moment, this particular boy with his particular history, stopped the ward. The nurses stopped what they were doing. The other patients looked up. Emmanuel, the serious young man who had been practicing for 4 years, turned away for a moment. When the elder of Nkinkim heard the news, relayed by the healer who had gone to Kumasi, he called a village meeting. He stood before his community, and he said, "The boy we left under the neem tree is walking." The silence that followed was the silence of a community confronting itself, not with shame entirely, though shame was there, but with something more complex. The recognition that they had created a system of belief that had nearly destroyed the very thing it claimed to protect. "We must do better," the elder said, "for every child, starting now." The elder stood at the front. He did not say anything ceremonial. He simply stepped forward and placed both his hands on Kofi's shoulders, the way an elder in the Akan tradition acknowledges someone they are receiving. Kofi looked up at him. He was 10 years old. He was standing. He had maps in his bag and books from the hospital, and a mind that had spent 9 years in the back of every room preparing for something that was only now beginning. The well was dug at the location Kofi had identified. It took the community 3 weeks with the tools they had. On the 22nd day, water came up. Clean water, more than the shallow well had produced in its best years. The village held a ceremony. They named it Kofi's Well. He objected to this mildly. He said the water had always been there, he had simply read where to look. The elder told him, with some humor, that this was precisely the kind of thing that got things named after you. Kofi finished school in Chinchim. Then he went to secondary school in the district capital on a scholarship, the first scholarship that had ever been arranged for a student from Chinchim, arranged by the doctor who had laughed at his question about books. He went on to study hydrology at the University of Ghana. He went on, at 28, to found an organization that identifies groundwater sources in underserved communities across West Africa using geological mapping combined with traditional ecological knowledge. He employs 12 people. He has identified clean water sources for 37 villages. He still walks with crutches. He says this is fine. He says he has never been in a hurry. His mother, Abena, lives in Chinchim. She still works in the fields. She does not boast about her son to people who have not asked, but sometimes when the young women in the village come to her with their worries about their children, the ones who are different, the ones the community is not sure what to do with, she tells them one thing. Wait, she says. Wait and watch. The ones who are different are not always the ones who are wrong. Sometimes they are the ones who are reading what the rest of us cannot see. The neem tree at the edge of Chinchim is still there. Kofi planted a small garden around its base when he came home from university for the first time. He did not explain why. He did not need to. There are children in villages all across this continent who are sitting in the back of every room, listening, reading, preparing for something the village has not yet imagined. The question is not whether they have something to offer. The question is whether we will make them wait under a tree long enough for the village to catch up. Kofi did not waste the waiting. He never does. If this story moved something in you, if it made you think about a child you know who is sitting quietly in the back of the room, waiting to be seen, then this channel was built for you. Like this video, share it with someone who needs to hear it, and subscribe because there are hundreds more stories like this one. Stories of children the world wrote off, of communities that found the courage to correct themselves, of the kind of strength that does not announce itself, that simply continues, quietly, until the village is ready to look. We will be here with the next story, the next name, the next child the world tried to leave under a tree. If this story touched your heart, don't forget to like, share, and subscribe for more powerful African stories that the world was never meant to forget.